Mondays with Mark Allen. Welcome back, everybody. All right, so the big elephant in the room that everybody's talking about is the announcement that Ironman made about Nice being location 2 for a 2-day race format for the Ironman World Championships. The men will be racing in Nice. The women will be racing in Kona this year, and then they're going to swap. It's a 4-year commitment by Nice to co-host the Ironman World Championship. A lot of negative voices about that. A lot of negative opinions about how the tradition of Kona and the Ironman and how the history there has evolved, and all of a sudden it's getting split up. So let's look at some of that, and I'm going to give you my opinion, all right? And I certainly am not giving any of this to change your opinion. You're going to have whatever opinion you want, positive, negative. I know that whatever I say is not going to create this kumbaya, let's all get together and hug moment, but at the same time, hear me out, because I've been around the sport for over 40 years. I raced Kona 12 times, won it 6. I raced Nice 10 times, won it 10 times. So I think I have a perspective that's probably unique and one that nobody else has in the sport, for whatever that's worth. All right, so anyway, let's back up for a sec. As we all know, COVID hit in 2020. 3 Ironman World Championships did not take place. 3 years where people were qualifying for the World Championship in races here and there, getting slots, getting deferred, getting put off into the future. And all of a sudden, Ironman has this dilemma on their hands. They have this massive backlog of legacy athletes, which is a great program. They have a backlog of people who have qualified slots for the various world championships that did not take place. And they're thinking, how can we service all these people who have qualified for the event, who are planning to go there, who've postponed year after year after year because of COVID? And they actually came up with what I thought was a great idea. Have the 2 days of racing, as they did last year. Women on Thursday, men on Saturday. And that would help sort of empty that pool of qualified people who have been waiting to do the World Championship. Great solution. However, as we all know, it didn't work out on the positive side as much as we had hoped. The women's race was amazing. To have their own day where the first woman across the line was the first person across the line, a woman crossing that line without a gaggle of rabid male triathletes all around her, and the anticipation of watching the next person come in be the second place person, as opposed to 30 other male triathletes, age groupers coming in, and then the next woman coming in. So it was super unique, and it was something that really should have somehow been implemented a long time ago to give the women a fair shake at being first across that line. 70.3 worlds, that's an easy solution in a sense. You can have the 2 days of racing, because putting on a half Ironman, a 70.3, is very different. 2 days of racing for that is very different than putting on 2 days of racing for a full Ironman. As we saw, the impact on the island was immense. It clogged things up. Kona is a small place. Not only that, but not only was the local population impacted, and a lot of people they're like, this is too much. It was the same for the people who were actually working at the event. It was too much. There were zombies walking around, people who had to put on that race on Thursday and then clean it up and then go back and do it again on Saturday. And for those of you who were out there on the race course, you know that there weren't enough volunteers. There were aid stations that ran out of water. There were aid stations that didn't have enough volunteers. There were volunteers that were completely burned out, and they didn't even run with you to give you your bottle or your water. It was too much. So race is over. What's the solution? Go back to 1 day of racing, men and women, 2,500 athletes. That's one option. But ultimately, in my opinion, it was not an option. And the reason is because of the women. The women got their fair shake. They got to race their race. They got to be out on the course, especially the first women, the top pro women. And if there's somebody in front of them, they know that it's another woman that they're competing against. There was no mistaking who was ahead of you. Was that a man? Is that a woman? Is that somebody I'm racing against? They didn't have to deal with a bunch of age group guys passing and then having to slow them down. I mean, it was a much cleaner race, and it was dynamic for us to watch because the TV crews were able to focus on the women's race and then focus on the men's race. And we saw how dynamic and changing the field was throughout the entire day. It was so much more exciting to watch than it ever was when both the men and women were racing on the same day. The camera crews could focus on the women's race, and then they could focus on the men's race. Amazing. But we cannot go back to having the men and the women racing together. It's just not a fair shake. So what's the solution? I think Ironman came up with the best solution possible. They're having 2 days of racing, 1 day in Nice, France, 1 day in Kona. Yes, it splits it up. Yes, it will be a different feel to have just women in Kona this year, just men in Nice this year, and swapping the following year. Breaking tradition is always tough. Breaking tradition is change, and it's uncomfortable, and it is not going to be met with 100% support saying, yeah, right on. Nice and Hawaii are very different places. There is no race on the planet that can replicate what the history of Ironman has, the mystique, the magic, the feel of it. But that's not going away. There is still going to be racing in Kona. It's just that you get every other year the chance to do it. And people are saying, well, you know, with the 2 days of racing, slots are just going to be given away. It's not going to be as exclusive. If you don't think it's going to be as exclusive, then go out and qualify for those easy slots. I guarantee you it's not going to be easy. You're still going to have to work for it. You're still going to have to be a darn good athlete in really good shape and have a great race to qualify for those world championships. So what about Nice? Brett+Sutton actually said it really well. Brett+Sutton, coach of many world champions, including Ironman world champions, he said Nice is actually a place where you get to test the best all-around balanced athlete out there. He said Kona does not provide that. Kona is hard, it's tough to win, but it doesn't test a person who is the best athlete, period. He said, you got to be a great swimmer or you're not going to win. You got to be great at climbing and descending on the bike or you're not going to win. You've got to be able to run fast and run for a long distance, very fast, very hard, or you're not going to win. And I agree. It's a very different kind of test, and the champion will have a very different sort of reputation associated with that victory, whether age group or pro in Nice. I raced there 10 times. I raced there because it was an amazing venue, because it fundamentally changed so much of who I am as a person, and there are so many amazing war stories that I have to tell, and I'm going to tell a lot of those as we get close to Nice this year. But bottom line, going back to what I was saying, we can't go back to 1 day of racing with 2,500 athletes with the men and the women mixed in together. Think about it this way. Think about the Olympic marathon. The women race on 1 day, the men race at the other end of the Olympics on another day. Would I want to watch the men and the women running the marathon together? No way. It would seem confusing. It would seem distracted to have the men and then the women and going back and forth. It's great to focus on each of those individual races individually, and that's what we're going to get. No, Nice is not Kona. Kona is not Nice. Nice is an amazing place. Kona is an amazing place. Each will have its feel. Each will have its journey. Each will be difficult to win. Each will have its great moments, and each will be historic. I think it's worth giving it a chance. Let's see how it works. Let's see how it feels. Nobody, the supporters or the critics, can really know right now how it's going to pan out, what the experience is going to be for the athletes. I think it's going to be great. Let's give it a chance. Think of it this way, and stick with me. I know this is a long Mondays with Mark Allen. I'm going to give you a music metaphor that kind of relates to this. One of my favorite guitarists is Jeff Beck. I think he's one of the best, if not the best guitarist of all time. He makes his guitar do things that even Eric Clapton has said, I don't know quite how he does it. You have to watch him so closely to even come anywhere close to understanding what he's doing with his guitar. Amazing. I actually saw him live in San Jose a couple months ago. Jeff Beck, top of the list. Now, fast forward, I was just returning on an international flight from Europe a couple of weeks ago, and they had a documentary on some musician called Billy Strings, who I'd never heard of. I had no idea what it was. It was Billy Strings at Red Rocks. And so I thought, oh, that's a long flight. It's a 3-hour video. Let me see what this is. It was a documentary on a bluegrass band, Billy Strings, mandolin, banjo, bass, and acoustic guitar. It was unbelievable. Amazing. I was mesmerized. Is it Jeff Beck? No. Was it worth watching? Absolutely. Incredibly inspiring. Think about it in terms of athletics. You've got Kona. It will always have its own unique, special character. There will never be anything that can compare to it. But the Billy Strings over here, Nice, France, it will be amazing. It will be worth going to. And if you don't want to go, don't go. Enjoy the show. Mondays with Mark Allen. There's a lot more I'm going to say about this, but that's enough for today. I hope you're having a great week.